What's up, guys? It's John with National Sports Entertainment. And I wanted to go into tomorrow's games, obviously. I wanted to go into today's games. And then I wanted to cover just basically the system that I use and how it could be utilized in a myriad of ways. And I'm going to attach my Discord link. And because anyone in my Discord knows this, it was somewhere around and I wish I can get this information out quicker. It's literally impossible. By the time I got out a video, the spread had already doubled. But some of these games, if you're watching them in the first quarter, you really have a good idea of who's going to win. So I am going to start incorporating a live game or two into the system. Maybe I'll go live on YouTube. I'll find out a way to get the information to you guys. But back when Phoenix was like minus 12, I think they moved to minus 14. It was the first quarter, and they were up about 9. I did lock in a hefty bet on them to win. Now, I'm just going to explain what I noticed. I noticed that the Blazers have the same players they had yesterday. And yesterday they won because they were getting in the paint and because they were ahead most of the game, or at least close. And I noticed that the Suns were winning this one handedly. And I thought to somebody like Devin Booker, somebody who seems to always hit threes when they're ahead, and they run away with games. So when it seemed like at the beginning it wasn't going to be a back and forth game, it became a matter of just how much the Suns win by. I had posted in my Discord, and anyone in there, you guys, hopefully you got in on that I thought the Suns were going to win by 20. Again, at the time, they were only up 9. But it's these patterns. So if you notice these patterns, I've noticed that the Mavericks and the Suns are two great teams. The Warriors are another one. You can kind of have an idea where they're at by how they play in a particular quarter. The Warriors, it's the third quarter. The Suns, it's how they open the game. Estrada, I'm sure if you've seen the Suns play, you'd probably agree that their worst basketballs when they're playing from behind, and their best basketballs always when they get off to an early lead. Now, that might age terribly. Who knows? Maybe the Blazers come back and cover it. But to me, this just seems like a one where the Suns completely run away with it. And I know it seems easy for me to say it in retrospect, but I'm only pointing it out now because I brought it up in my Discord simply because of how Booker is. Booker is known as a player who, once they're ahead like this, he'll just start raining threes. He's almost impossible to stop. Then you get Chris Paul shooting threes. Then Payne comes in the game, and he's playing full throttle. And the Blazers, they're more of a system-oriented team, as are the Suns. But the Blazers, they're not going to be getting the threes that they were getting in games when they were winning, because they're going to be forcing more shots and just trying to force things to happen. And you can't really go to Nurk here because you're down 20. So it's a nice trend I noticed. I didn't want to spend too much time on it. But I can say between that and player props, I think there's, a myriad of ways we can use the system to our advantage. And whether it's live betting or just looking at player props where maybe a player hasn't scored 20 points in 3 games and that player typically scores 20 points every other 2 games, we can just start playing that player or fading a player who has 20 points in X amount of games, whatever the case may be. I was thinking about it, and it actually will afford us more legs and honestly better metrics. Now, I wanted to go into this week's, college games. At first, I looked at it, and I'm like, oh, this was a colossal failure. But honestly, it wasn't as bad as I thought, simply because we did win the most important game. So we had a bunch of first sequences, obviously. They were all fresh. Tulsa, I had them covering Tulane just because I didn't think Tulane was going to start off as good as they did and against the spread. Tulane did win that game. And on the UCF-Memphis game, I won one of a couple. I went with the under because these are teams that have only went under once all year. And eventually, since they go over every week, the public just says, okay, this team's always going over, and they pick them to go over. And that's why typically it will balance out over the time. So I did think that game was going to go under. It didn't, but, again, they don't always go our way. But that metric does typically go our way. So we lost those 2 off the bat. We didn't have any immediate second sequences. like I said in my last video going over the games, the only one I had an immediate second sequence lined up for was this Texas Tech game because, as I had said, I did not believe that all these teams were going to finish undefeated, especially when you had TCU and Notre Dame, well, Texas Tech and Notre Dame, both getting one-score odds. So anytime a team is getting one-score odds, Vegas is saying there's a chance they could win. So I liked either of these teams. Notre Dame came through us, so they squashed out that sequence, which oops, I don't know why I got that one written twice. I think that's because I had them as separate sequences at first. Notre Dame was a first sequence, and then like I said in my video, should Texas Tech lose, it becomes a second sequence. And that's essentially how all the ones with metrics like this, where you have two of the same metrics, you have two undefeated teams and I'm playing the same metric, I'm almost always going to double that up. So, and then Miami, we had 7.5, they didn't win. So obviously we have a couple second legs, and that's okay because we have NFL football tomorrow. And see where we're at here. Yeah, we're still 20. I think this one's going to finish over 20. They might make it close and try and put it at like 16 to 18, but I think it's like a 25-point win. But going to the NFL, there's not a bunch that jump out to me. But again, I try and stick to the same metrics with the games. That way, if we miss our second leg or something of that nature, we're still working off a very good metric for the third. So here we look at the against the spread records. Now the Falcons, normally I would fade because, again, if you look at all these teams, these are playoff teams. At least they have playoff records. Dallas, Giants, Tennessee, Buffalo, Seattle, Philly, Jets, Cincy, every team, right? Like basically up until the Chargers. And I told, this is what I was explaining to you. Typically your better teams also finish better against the spread. So we have an outlier here in the Falcons, but I'm not just going to blindly fade them because last 2 weeks we faded them. They were 6-0. We knew that wasn't going to continue. So we faded them 2 weeks in a row and we won. So they might not lose a third straight game against the spread. So then I start looking at these teams. We got the Rams, we got the Bucs, Jags. And I think the Bucs are a night game, if I'm not mistaken. Because I remember I didn't see them like jumping out at me. So I think they must be a night game or something. No, they're not. Okay, they're a 4:00 game. So we can go into this game, Rams at Bucs. Well, I'll just go into it now because I feel like if I put it out at 1:00 or 1:30, then if you guys parlay or whatever you guys do, I would rather you have it now, so we don't have to do them in order. So here is an interesting one. I think a lot of people are going to be fading the Bucs in this game, and it's against the Rams. Now, this one's a tough one, and there's a reason. As fun as this game would be to play, I can't say, this team's going to win, because in my opinion, both of these teams need this win. Losing twice to San Francisco and with Seattle doing the way they are, if the Rams lose this game, they're essentially out of the playoffs, which is fine. It's definitely something that could happen. And the Bucs could lose this game and be in the playoffs because they'd still only be like a game out of the division. So looking at it from that perspective, it comes down to the question, do they want the Rams back in the playoffs? Or are they going to just go with a different team? Do they want to go with Seattle, Arizona, or something of that nature? But the Rams absolutely need this win if they're going to make the playoffs, and the Bucs don't. So it kind of goes against my metric because the Bucs have yet to win a home game this year against the spread. Something very not typical of a playoff team. But it's also something that, again, we don't know if I think the Bucs do make the playoffs, but they might with a crappy record. So they could be an outlier this year. So what I can say is for that one, I like it as a first sequence, and I do like the Rams. I like them at the 3. I think they keep that division competitive, and I think, as I said back in week 4, the Tom Brady meltdown narrative makes sense, especially the four. Probably maybe even though they're crappy teams, it's one of those games that people will consider a game of the week, just because they're two teams that a lot of people want to see playing, and they want to see what's going on with Brady. So I do think the Rams cover. I'm going to be taking them as +3, but it's definitely going to be a first sequence because it's not one I'm loving. Now, for a first sequence, there's a couple that I did like. I was looking at the Packers one, and of course, as bad as Aaron has been, I still don't think people are going to be taking I think a lot of people are going to be taking Green Bay -3. So here's I go to the metric and see how we expect Detroit to be bad against the spread, but we look how Green Bay's been against the spread, and it gives us an idea, because I do think they're going to want to make things interesting between Aaron and Minnesota. I don't think that you're going to have primetime games where it doesn't matter. So we look at the against the spread, and we will see that. I don't know. I thought I clicked NFL twice. There we go. Sorry about that. We'll see that Green Bay actually isn't doing terrible against the spread. They are somehow 3-5. Okay, so actually they are pretty bad against the spread. So they're 3-5 against the spread. Detroit's not much better. Like I said, the only difference is typically your playoff teams are the ones who do poorly against or don't do poorly against the spread. That's why if you notice, it's like the same teams in here, the ones selling: Green Bay, Rams, and Bucs. And that's what makes the Rams-Bucs even tougher to pick, because they're both so bad against the spread. It really just comes down to, in my opinion, narratives in that one. But yeah, looking at this, I don't think Green Bay, as terrible as they are, and as much as Rodgers is just really, I think purposely trolling us, I do like Green Bay, believe it or not, buying the half point -3 against Detroit. Now, again, that's another first sequence, because, again, that one didn't really jump off the page at me either. The only one that jumped off the page at me, and this is going to be our second leg, so this one's going to be a second leg for one of our college losses, so it'll be a second unit. I like Washington here. I don't understand how they can justify the Commanders being just a 3-point underdog. It makes absolutely no sense unless you're trying to really push this NFC beast narrative. There's no reason. You got Kirk Cousins, who, he's returning, so I could see them pushing, some kind of narrative there. There's just a lot of interesting things with this game, but the thing that I find the most is, again, I don't understand how the Commanders are only 3-point underdogs. Now, to be fair, this happened a few weeks ago against Dallas, and I thought there's no way, so I picked the Commanders, and Dallas beat them handedly. But I've seen a few weeks in a row now where the Vikings are like 3-point favorites, and I just don't think that the public is going to keep getting paid on these Viking games. So, especially because they're playing the Eagles on prime time next week, this would be like my steal of the week. This would be my lock of the week if I was like one of those people that was like, wait till the end of the video to see my lock of the week. That's who I would be picking, and that's who I am picking. I love the Commanders here as a second sequence. So I'm going to make a video on exactly how I do my sequences, because I know we have newer people and people that play different types of systems, but this one, essentially, as I went over, I do. It's a 3-leg system, so we go 3 legs deep, and then if the third leg loses, we close it out. This is going to be a first leg, as I said, and I'll take the Rams with the points here. And our first unit's always going to be to win around 25. So sometimes I'll, be a few dollars off. 26 here is going to win us about 23, something of that nature. And so on and so forth for all the games I went over. Now, for the Miami loss, we're going to go ahead and go with Washington. +3. Now, it's your prerogative. You can choose to buy it to 3.5. But again, for me, and I would pick the money line. I like to be cautious. I do 55 because of the juice, obviously. Probably when it's about 50. So anyway, the reason the money line sounds great now because I do think the Commanders have to win this game for the narrative purpose. Covering the spread doesn't do anything. They're still 4-5 going against the Eagles, and I think them being 5-4 makes that upset potential make much more sense, and it just makes the game more appealing. So that's why I like the Commanders so much. To me, of all the games, this one from a metric standpoint and from a narrative standpoint jumped out. It kind of fits my Notre Dame logic. Obviously, it's not 100% because I had the same logic with TCU. The only difference being Notre Dame also fit the metric. TCU just fit the narrative that there can't be that many undefeated teams. But the line was about right at 7.5, 8.5. Meanwhile, Notre Dame, the line wasn't even close to right. So if we can get both those metrics, I that's why I try and not pick every single game. Like, for example, on the Bucs, we're not getting the spread metric. We're more getting the narrative, and I think the narrative will be the Brady meltdown and the fact that the NFC South is just going to suck and it's not really going to matter what Brady's record is. Meanwhile, with the Rams win, if you look at the NFC West, it's a very interesting dynamic. Bills-Jets, as I said earlier, I think I brought it up. It does look appealing. Why are the Jets getting 11 at home? A lot of people, in my opinion, are going to be on the Jets in this game. And a lot of times, this could be one of those upset games. You know, like, to me, the money line and the spread doesn't matter with these upset games. I feel like if it's going to be an upset, they're not going to set it at like 3 points or something. They just, a lot of times, if you notice with these upsets, the Steelers just did it. I think the Colts did it. They'll set them at like 10, and then the upset will happen. I think it's just kind of to really show people that the team has no chance. I'm not sure why they do it, but I don't think there is an upset. And I think if the Bills win, which I think they're going to, I think they win and cover the spread. So this will be another first sequence. Again, the metric here jumps out to me just because they're at home getting 11 points. I just don't think. Again, that's a very big line. Now, I did have the Eagles with that line, and they won by 12. I had them with 13. Here, the difference is, despite the records, you have, in my opinion, even though the Eagles are being pushed as a top team, they're pushed. The Bills are the team. Josh Allen's a front runner for MVP, and the Jets have been known to disappoint. So while I could certainly see an upset to make this interesting, I just don't think it happens here. I don't think it happens this game. I think they did everything they could with Zach Wilson this year. I think he has an okay year. They finished with like 9 wins, but I don't think they're pushing them to like beating the Bills. They might want to make it interesting, but I just think the Bills get a good old-fashioned blowout in this game. So I like the Bills minus 11. I wouldn't be surprised if it moved to like 13 or something, or even probably not 2 points overnight, but maybe 12. It's probably started like closer to 10. I've noticed that a lot with these type of games. But yeah, I think the Bills just blow them out, to be honest. There's no reason that game should be if you're in Buffalo, maybe you can make the argument, but I don't think you can make that argument playing in the Jets home stadium. So you see here the Chiefs are 12.5. So we have this is about the same spread, but I think we can agree, even though they have the same records, in my opinion at least, the Titans are a better team, and the Chiefs are at home here. So again, the Bills aren't even at home, and they're getting the same spread the Chiefs are. It's just a very interesting. So we'll have to see how the Jets game goes. That might give us an idea of how the Chiefs game is going to go, and I'll be going over that game as well. And I'll go deeper into I can go into the Seahawks Cardinals. This game to me is just a complete coin flip. It can go completely either way. I guess, it would make sense to make the Cardinals win to cover this, to get the standings closer. But I'm not going to conceited and say, "Oh yeah, I know that this team should win." I really have no idea, so I'm just staying away from that one. So just to recap, I do like the Raiders, and actually I didn't go over them yet. I don't think that was going to be the next one, but I like the Commanders as a second leg of our one of our lost sequences, and just because I like them but I don't love them, I do like the Rams with the points for a new sequence. I like the Bills to cover that spread for a new sequence. And the last one I had saw was the Vikings. I like fading the Vikings. The Commanders. Yeah, so we got the Commanders, the Rams +3. Okay, we got the Bills -11. So those three I like, and then the other one that to me kind of jumped out. It didn't jump out, but I've seen this one a lot of times, and a lot of people still are picking the Jags. Believe it or not, a lot of the public is picking the Jags in games. They were against Denver, so I think people look at the Raiders no better than they look at Denver, and there's not going to be a lot of public money on the Raiders. Meanwhile, like I said, it could be deception, but it is weird that Vegas still has the Raiders as higher on the list to win the Super Bowl than teams like the Colts. Not great teams, but just teams like the Colts. I think they were ahead of the Patriots last I checked. Cardinals, teams with better records, or that would have you would think have a better chance of making the playoffs, especially in that division. So it is weird that they're still pretty high on the Super Bowl list. They should be like in the bottom 5. So I do like the Raiders. I like them -2.5. Again, here's one where you could buy down to 2. That would be, your prerogative. But I think 2.5 will be safe here. I do think the Raiders get this win, get them to 3-5 to make some of those later games, versus the Chiefs and the Broncos in the playoffs, not the playoffs, in prime time, in my opinion, more appealing. So those were the ones that jumped out to me. I know it's not a bunch of games, but again, there's some of these teams that I just am not going to run out of my way to play. Aaron, I said before, I was never playing another Aaron game again. I'm not going to lie. I do like Green Bay -3, buying the half point, because I can totally see them winning by exactly 3. Just because, again, I think they need to make Minnesota and Green Bay interesting. So I do like Green Bay -3, definitely as a first leg. People have brought up, this is a tough NFL week. There's not a ton of narratives. The lines are pretty, most of them at least, they look about how they should. Titans, Chiefs, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be loving the Titans to cover that spread. So that could be a trap. But for the rest of them, Bucs, Rams, that's what I would expect. Seahawks, that's what I would expect. Washington jumps out to me. That's why I like them as a second leg. Buffalo jumps out. I think they should be given less. They should be giving about 7. That's why I like them as a first leg. And Green Bay, I'm just going with the narrative that Green Bay needs to be at least pushed as a playoff opportunity, a playoff chance, just to make some of these games down the road interesting. They've already conceded that the Lions are going to be the worst team, them or the Steelers. Probably the Lions, though. So there's no harm in Aaron getting a win against the Lions. He can still look like crap and do it, which he probably will. And, yeah, Bengals looks about right. And the other one was this one. And I think the Raiders do get that win. So I'm going to, like I said, we don't want to have too many open sequences because we still have some open ones from college, right? So we don't want to have too many open sequences. But I do like looking at the over-under. And as we can see, we got Denver and Indy 1-7 on the under. So I do like the Colts also to hit that over. I think they finally hit it. They hit it for the second time, I think. And I honestly don't know what the over is, but to me it doesn't matter. because I'm picking off the metric. I'm not picking because of the over-under number. I believe they're all psychological. I'm picking it because, and we'll do these to win 20, because like I said, we don't want too many open sequences. So with the bankroll, right now, just so you know, I did a bunch on wrestling. So right now we're around 400. So I've availed it so we can have if a bunch of these split, we're still in a pretty good spot. But I don't know, but that's a W. Maybe I knew there. Maybe it's just happening. It's meant to be. But anyway, yeah. So we got this one. I want to add them all because I want everybody to be able to see them all. So I know this part's tedious, but that way everybody can see every pick. So for seat 123, I like Bills minus 11. And again, all these are going to be around the same amount. These are all going to be around the win 25. Sometimes my over-unders, like I said, I'll do to win 20. Then we got the Raiders. And what I'm going to do is for some of the 4 o'clock games, like for example for the Rams, who I'll probably be taking, is we'll wait. Well, actually, the Rams for sure we're not doing as a second leg. I've already decided that. But for say like the 8 o'clock game, if after we saw the 1 o'clock game, it's looking like the Chiefs are definitely going to cover based off how the Bills did, or if we just see something that we find interesting, then the Commanders obviously is a second leg. If you see something interesting, there's only 2 4 o'clock games, so it's tougher. But it would probably be a Monday game, but we can always go ahead and make the Sunday night game a second leg or something of that nature. So that's why I set it up the way I do. That way we can always go ahead and make one of the other games a second leg. But yeah, so this is who we have. We got Washington +3 as a second leg. Rams are going to be +3 as a first leg. Colts, I like the over, whatever the over is, as a first leg, but that's to win 20. Bills -11 as a first leg. And we got Vegas -2.5 as a first leg. The only one I didn't officially write down is Green Bay, because I am still deciding myself if I am 100% going to be taking them. I just figured that there's if Aaron Rodgers is going to win a game, yeah, the Suns are just, this is what I figured was going to happen. When they win big. So this is a good thing that we'll know going forward with the Suns. As I said, let's see if Booker put up like 10 more points, or if they got the bench in. Booker's up to 24. Yeah, they got the bench in. Is Payne in? No, they didn't put Payne in. It's just, yeah, these kind of games. And like I said, if you join my Discord, I'll be able to at least more in a quicker fashion get you this information, because I have a live section where I just post the live bets. We also hit on Paolo Banchero going over 30. We figured that out in the Discord, and that paid about 5-1. So the Discord is pretty cool for stuff like that, for live betting, things of that nature. But yeah, regarding the football, I just feel like of all these games, the Commanders I'm the most excited about. So that's going to be our second leg. But I wanted to go into props and things like the live games, because there's a lot of different ways we can extend our odds, and that's what we really just want to do. So I didn't want to make this video too long-winded, but I also didn't want to just cover the 1 o'clock games. And I know I didn't go over a ton. I mean, we went over about half the games, close to half in one way or another. And I'm almost definitely going to be playing Green Bay, just so you know. I just haven't officially. I'm going to sleep on it. So, unless I say otherwise, I'm going to stick with it. But you never know with Aaron Rodgers. That guy's been losing to the Lions is definitely would be fitting upon what they've been doing with him. But yeah, for like I said, just for the reasons of the fact they're playing the Eagles in prime time, I feel very confident the Commanders get us back our Miami University loss, and obviously we got back our Notre Dame helped us out a lot too. So Tennessee's the other one. We still have that one open. Hendon Hooker did not come through for us. I was off on him. I still think they're going to give him the Heisman, but yeah, they didn't. They didn't get the job done. I should have known it was a sucker's trap. I've bet traps versus narratives for a while, and then the narratives have reigned supreme on a lot of the occasions. So I thought the narrative was going to reign supreme and Hooker was going to get that win, but it didn't. So, I was off on that one. But like I said, Notre Dame and TCU having the same those two games having the same metric, we were able to split that and profit. And that's basically our goal for NFL Sunday, with the Commanders having a very suspicious line and other teams, Bills, things like that, having suspicious lines. It, in my opinion, helps us because the odds of two trap games not being a trap are very rare, especially with Vegas. So I agree with you guys. None completely jumped off, but there is about 5 or 6 that I thought were odd, and I know a few people were bringing up some of these games too. So that's really all I got. If you watched Crown Jewel or if you bet on a good job, I had everyone except one. I am surprised AJ Styles lost, but I did a video where I went over those predictions, and yeah, everyone hit except one match. It's a funny, wrestling can be harder to call than football sometimes, but no, it was pretty routine. It was in Saudi Arabia. I'm telling you, there's a lot of money to be made on politics and on wrestling. So it's basically given away, as long as you watch it. But yeah, football's not much different. It's just they do obviously still pretend that it's real. But I think we have a good day tomorrow. I know I say that a lot, but if we've proven anything, it's that we have a very good ability to, at the worst, balance out, and typically we win more than we lose. So I don't expect any cold streak to continue too long. And despite not having we only got the one game. It was a very important game. It was the only second leg, so that's it pays 2 legs essentially. It pays 2 sequences worth of bets essentially. So that's why the Commanders are going to be very important tomorrow. If not, I still have a nice third leg in store. But I think between the games that I put down in the sequences that we picked, I think we do well. And I'm not exactly sure, but we'll be, because like I said, it's really just all open sequences right now. So it's a lot of pending bets. But we should be close back to between 450 and 5. I think around 5 at the end, once all the sequences close out. So I always say it's like crypto. You got to kind of zoom out, and it's a long-term thing. And as you can see, that's how this has been. We've had a couple, $400 net losses, but climbed right back up to over our starting bankroll, which is always the goal. So we took a pretty bad, as far as losing between basketball and Saturday. We did not have great string of days, so I do expect that to turn around. I like these metrics a lot, and I do think we win about 70% of our games tomorrow. I really do. So take care, everybody, and happy earnings.